So as I was driving to yet another village which was genocided during the Bosnian genocide, I came across a little memorial they built so visitors can have a place to reflect and meditate. In front of it were remains of a minaret of the village mosque, which Serb extremists blew up in 1992, right after they butchered 33 people from the village and forcibly removed the other 200. During the Bosnian genocide, of the 1,144 pre-war Islamic buildings, 614 were completely destroyed and 307 were damaged. Of those buildings inside of the Serb extremist-controlled territories, all but one were completely destroyed. This included two UNESCO sites, Ferhat Pasha Mosque, known as Ferhadija Mosque, built in Banja Luka in 1579, as well as another Banja Luka mosque called Arnaduija, which was built in 1594. In fact, these Islamic religious buildings, which included mosques, mektebs, tekkes, and turbes, weren't just shelled via artillery during the war. In Serb-controlled areas, they were, and I quote, destroyed in a planned manner by putting large quantities of explosives in them. After that, in many cases, the remnants were transported to other locations for disposal, as to erase any trace that they were there to begin with. We know that the remnants of the Ferhadija Mosque were thrown into the river Vrbas. Similar thing happened to the Alaja Mosque in Foča, whose remains were thrown into river Drina. And just to be clear, it wasn't just the Islamic religious buildings. 269 Catholic buildings belonging to Bosnian Croats were also fully destroyed. Conversely, Croat extremists didn't just target mosques, they also destroyed Orthodox churches. But as you can see, virtually all Islamic buildings were destroyed in Serb-occupied territories, and many were destroyed in Croatian extremist-occupied territories. Also, many of the buildings that weren't entirely destroyed but were damaged could not be fully restored back to their original condition. Colin Kaiser, a historian who appeared as a witness for prosecution in a trial centering on destruction of Islamic buildings, once stated, and I quote, "Minarets were destroyed with the intention of wiping out all Islamic symbols. So to destroy all the mosques can only mean one thing, cultural genocide, which is defined as attacks against a group's cultural heritage, including the systemic destruction of religious buildings, monuments, and artifacts." This is not to give Croat extremists any leeway. After all, we know that they destroyed countless mosques, including one seen on television reports around the world in the town of Ahmići. They also destroyed the priceless old bridge of Mostar, the most important UNESCO site for the Bosniak people. Both of these extremist groups engaged in cultural genocide, but Serb extremists did so by state-sanctioned policy of genocide from start to finish of Bosnian genocide. Meanwhile, in Sarajevo, which underwent the longest siege in modern history, the Bosniak Muslims didn't take out their anger of being attacked day in and day out on Orthodox churches. Or else the famous Saborna Crkva Rođenja Prosvete Bogorodice would have been completely destroyed, except it wasn't. Nor was the so-called Old Orthodox Church in Sarajevo. Or how about the Orthodox Church inside of the town of Srebrenica? Srebrenica too was under siege for most of the war, culminating in the genocide of over 8,000 Bosniak men and boys. When they took Srebrenica, Serbs destroyed both of the mosques, but the Orthodox Church in the middle of the town was still standing. Despite being under siege and tormented almost the entire length of the war, the locals didn't level the church in anger, did they? How about Bihać, another town in which the Bosniaks were under siege for almost the entirety of the war? Temple of the Descent of the Holy Spirit of the Apostles Orthodox Church was not destroyed. In fact, during the Sana 95 operation to liberate large sections of Krajina region of Bosnia, General Dudaković of the 5th Corps of the Bosnian Army expressly stated to his men that not a single Serb Orthodox church be in any way attacked. Or the other places like Tuzla or countless others. Just like we cannot bring back tens of thousands of Bosniaks who were butchered during the Bosnian genocide, we also cannot bring back many of these priceless Bosniak religious and cultural heritage sites. What can be done, however, is for Serb extremist-controlled, genocide-denying entity known as Republika Srpska, as well as the country of Serbia, to admit to what happened and to pay heavy and long-lasting reparations to Bosniaks. Besides the obvious genocide observed in murder, torture, rape, and forced displacement, the cultural genocide leaves no doubt that what happened to Bosniak Muslims was genocide, full stop. Saying anything otherwise is genocide denial, and anybody engaging in that should be legally punished as well as culturally ostracized and marginalized. The minaret behind me didn't end up on the floor on its own. Somebody put it there, and they need to pay for it.